Hello friends, Pat here. Welcome to another video in the series that I have called Tech Talk as a placeholder, but it has stuck. In this episode, we are going to compare some articles from the world to understand if the 5G mobile network that is coming to Australia is dangerous to our health. Look, you're being exposed to radiation right now. It's coming to you from both space and the soil, from the water, the food, and the body itself. It's radioactive and you're being exposed to microwaves and radio waves, both natural and human-made. Could be Wi-Fi, TV, radio stations, cell phones, 3G, 4G, and now 5G. And look, 5G is just getting started. So what is the 5G network? It is a digital cellular network in which the service area covered by providers is divided into small geographical areas called cells. Analog signals representing sounds and images are digitized in the phone, converted by an analog to digital converter, and transmitted as a stream of bits. All the 5G wireless devices in a cell communicate by radio waves with a local antenna array and low-power automated transceivers in the cell, over frequencies and channels assigned by the transceiver from a common pool of frequencies, which are reused in geographically separated cells. The local antennas are connected with telephone network and the internet by a high bandwidth optical fiber or wireless backhaul connection, usually to the NBN fiber if one is available. Like existing cell phones, when a user crosses from one cell to another, their mobile device is automatically handed off seamlessly to the antenna in the new cell. The new 5G wireless devices also have 4G LTE capabilities, as the new network uses 4G for initially establishing the connection with the cell, as well as in locations where 5G access is just not available. Now, 5G can support up to 1 million devices per square kilometer, while 4G supports only up to 100 devices per square kilometer. Simply better and faster. However, this also means there is a lot more mini towers being built, to the point where there could be one every few streets or even homes, and that is scary. So 5G is a wireless communication protocol. A quick look back at our high school years reminds us that there is a spectrum for all wireless signals, from AM radio to visible light, then ultraviolet light. 5G will use a spectrum in the existing LTE frequency range of 600 MHz to 6 GHz and a millimeter wave band between 24 and 86 GHz. Now, large quantities of new spectrum 5G and R frequency bands have been allocated to 5G in order to support its increasing throughput requirements. For example, in July 2016, the US Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, freed up vast amounts of bandwidth in underused high-band spectrum for 5G. The Spectrum Frontier proposal doubled the amount of millimeter wave unlicensed spectrum to 14 GHz and created 4 times the amount of flexible mobile use spectrum the FCC had licensed to date. Now, as of March 2019, there are reportedly 52 countries, territories, special administrative regions, disputed territories, and dependencies that are formally considering introducing certain spectrum bands for terrestrial 5G services, or are holding consultations regarding suitable spectrum allocations for 5G, or have reserved spectrum for 5G, or have announced plans to auction frequencies, or have already allocated spectrum for 5G use. Also, because of espionage fears on foreign users by Chinese equipment vendors, several countries, including Australia, United Kingdom, and the Netherlands, as of early 2019, have taken actions to restrict or eliminate the use of Chinese equipment in their respective 5G networks. Chinese vendors and the Chinese government have denied these claims. Okay, so the main health risk is radiation, damage that cannot be seen, and so radiation can be broadly divided into ionizing and non-ionizing types. Now, ionizing radiation is powerful enough to damage DNA, which is why you have to be careful about how much sunlight you get or too much X-rays. Now, obviously sunlight, the damaging part, is the ultraviolet light. Ionizing radiation is powerful enough to damage DNA, which is why you have to be careful about too much sunlight or too many X-rays. Now, ionizing radiation doesn't have enough energy to break our DNA, and therefore we have traditionally thought it cannot cause things like cancer. 5G type electromagnetic waves are a higher frequency than 4G and therefore further up the spectrum towards X-ray, but still on the non-ionizing side. Because they have a shorter wavelength, the waves are less able to penetrate solid objects, just like sunlight can't go through a wall. Technically speaking, being indoors will hinder 5G reception. For this reason, like I mentioned earlier, 5G requires many suitcase-sized cell boxes to boost the signals and direct it around corners and other obstacles. Though radio waves are non-ionizing, in 2011, the World Health Organization research team classified all radio frequency emissions as possible carcinogens. And for reference, coffee and pickled vegetables are in the same possibly carcinogenic list. Now, the first wave of 5G devices and towers will be using the same spectrum as 4G LTE, so for now, you can sleep soundly. Once our Aussie telcos decide to put more money into 5G, they will start using the higher frequency bands 24 GHz and 28, and later 37 and 39 and 47. There's also lots of talk on the internet, specifically Facebook, about the phone industry trying to suppress data about the dangers of cell phone radiation. Suggestions have been made that the same deceptive tactics used by the tobacco industry to hide the danger of cigarette smoking are being used by the wireless industry. Well, Dr. Karl Krushelinski, a gentleman who frequents the Triple J office as a science communicator and qualified scientist, doctor and engineer who is not part of any telco, had this to say.
Now, all mobile phones, including 5G, use high-frequency radio waves. That's a type of electromagnetic wave. As the frequency gets higher, we can send more information in each second, but the signal is more easily blocked by solid stuff like the concrete in buildings. Our current 4G mobile phone networks run at frequencies between 700 MHz and a few thousand megahertz, which is the same as a few gigahertz. Now, the new 5G network uses two main bands, one under 6 GHz, that's 6 billion cycles per second, while the other one is above 24 GHz. So that's higher frequency than 4G, but it's still lower than visible light, which sits around 600,000 GHz. So now it's time to re-emphasize 2 points. First, as the frequency gets higher, we get more cycles per second, so we can transmit more data. Second, as the frequency gets higher, the ability of the radio signal to pass through stuff gets less. Once again, plain old physics tells us that the 5G radio signal will be more easily blocked by the concrete in buildings than our current 3G or 4G phones. This is all non-ionizing radiation. It does not carry enough energy to damage atoms, so it cannot cause cancer. The frequency and energy is just too low to damage atoms. We have run many hundreds of studies over the last half-century, and we have never been able to prove that any of these non-ionizing radiations cause cancer.
It's non-ionizing. The bottom line, it's never been proven to cause cancer. It might sit in your skin and warm it up, but that doesn't cause cancer. It'll warm up your skin a tiny amount, but so tiny you won't be able to actually measure it. And so for the official studies that I have found over the last few weeks have been that the frequencies that 5G uses can warm up skin though. A very minute amount. However, it is so minimal it's difficult to measure. In fact, since the 50s, we have been using technology that adopts electromagnetic radiation to heat. They are called infrared heaters, and you can walk down to Bunnings right now and get yourselves one of those. Because heating, as far as those articles and peer-reviewed studies state, doesn't mean danger, doesn't mean cancer. All that said, UV tanning booths are much more dangerous than wireless signals because UV has been proven to cause skin cancer. There has been no conclusive results indicating that mobile technologies are eminently dangerous to humans. Many astroturfers rely on how difficult it is to contextualize scientific results to make wild claims that go unchecked for a long time. In particular, they often cite one specific study as proof for their misinformation. Think vaccines cause autism, where the one guy who did the study faked it all and people keep pointing to the same study as proof. Now remember how I mentioned that 5G has a hard time going through solid objects? Well, that's because it is a higher frequency. And just because something is higher doesn't mean it's more powerful or dangerous. You see, the argument that the higher frequency causes more damage has been debunked too. Numerous experts on the biological effects of electromagnetic radiation confirm the opposite opinion. The reason for this is human skin offers a protective boundary that reflects high frequencies, protecting internal organs. Higher frequency radio waves are less likely to reach your brain than lower frequency waves. Now, with more people using mobile phones, Wi-Fi, and other wireless gadgets, you could imagine the cancer rates would go up. But a quick look at some stats cannot justify that thinking. So look, scary stories make for popular headlines, but the reality is that small pieces of potential evidence are often quickly blown out of proportion. Background radio frequency radiation levels even in today's very dense world. Everywhere you look, there is radiation emitting devices. The LTE networks around us are constantly buzzing, but they still fall well below the regulatory and scientifically tested safe limits. Even mobile phone manufacturers have to prove that their latest gadgets won't exceed the outlined limits. But none of this should stop any studies into radio frequency radiation, because the more we know, the better we can protect ourselves from potential carcinogenics, like how cell phone radiation affects fertility, or if there are elevated risks for children. If there are unknown risks, we certainly want to know about them. However, at this stage, there is no evidence that 5G is unsafe for the public. Friends, thank you very much for watching. If you like this sort of content, then tap that like button. And if you'd like to see more, please consider subscribing. We're an Aussie-based YouTube channel creating local content for people just like you. And we really love your engagement. It means a lot. So if you have some thoughts you'd like to share with us, please comment below. Let me know what you think about this subject. It is a very touchy subject, and I'll speak to you guys in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Bye.